and Marcos and Mindy Mason here, and my wonderful wife Sue, and and Dan, who has had 6 children and qualifies him for a lot of reasons to be up here. And I want to give a disclaimer. You know, tonight we're all going to be sharing our opinions. We don't want you leaving here thinking that this church has a firm policy, these 6 steps, these 10 rules. It's nothing like that. This is going to be a fun evening, talking about what we've experienced, maybe some things we've learned, maybe some mistakes we've made that we've learned through, and maybe some things that will help point you in the right direction. So I think we'll start with Mark and Betty. If you want to just kind of give a brief introduction to the group and kind of your dating background.
Sure. Mark and Betty. Our dating started about 7 years ago. We met, and after I had talked to her pastor. She was in residential discipleship, and so was I. So I got approval by the pastors to kind of approach her and talk to her a little bit. I gave her my number. She said, "I don't take men's numbers. I don't have male friends." I said, "Good, because I'm not trying to be your friend." So it was very cut to the point. But our dating started on the phone. We had agreed to talk to each other on Thursdays, and we did that for about 6 months. So
September to January. Yep.
yeah, and through that time talking, I think we were praying, getting to know each other, which is really cool because when you do it on the phone, you don't have the distraction of physical temptation, and you're getting to know a person by conversation first, and it really opens up that just good getting to know each other. So we did that for about 6 months until we prayed and went on our first group date. We went on and a couple that we went on a date with first, they got married the same day we got married, the same year we got married, which was pretty cool. And we just continued the group date with the people from our church, our friends. And as it got a little more serious, we kind of group dated with our family. I would bring her to family events, and she would bring me to family events. And then one day, super nervously, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. I asked her dad. And I asked her dad if I could marry her, and he said yes. And then when we finally did, he pulled me aside. And he said, I always said yes because I thought she would say no. And now, recently, we've just celebrated 5 years of marriage. So, yeah.
Great.
Anything I forgot?
Okay. Marcos and Mindy.
You want to go? First of all, how many of you are singles here? Raise your hands. Cool. I always like to see, are there parents with their kids or friends? That's awesome. Mindy and I'm originally from Argentina. She's from Oklahoma. So the very South met with the South at one point in a missions trip in Mexico. I just graduated from college, so I almost didn't get to meet her. But if you're single, first of all, are you praying for the one that you're going to marry one day? Are you? Raise your hands if you are. Yeah, that's good. My mom, encouraged me to do that once, and my mom is the one that said, "Yeah, you should go," because it was a missions trip. And they needed a translator. I speak Spanish. And I'm like, I just graduated. I need to start paying all my debt, hers and mine.
Your mom's?
My mom's, yeah. And so anyways, I got invited to go to Mexico to translate, and it was a 10-day missions trip. And I told them twice no, and the third time I was like, "Mom, what do you think?" And so I was praying, and she's like, "I think you should do it." And so listen to your parents if you can, or somebody that has a godly heart to help you, move forward in life. But so that was so close, and I'd like for you to continue that next step.
So it was kind of similar with me. I was in college. I was about to graduate, and I was working with a youth group. So the youth pastor had asked me to go a year before on this mission trip. and I was excited to go. And then as life went on, I was about to graduate. I was going to go to Europe for like 3 months. So it seemed like it wasn't really something that was a good idea, but I had already committed. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And so I went, and before we got to Mexico, we met somewhere in Texas with some, and this guy needed a ride. So they threw him in the van with us. And so just randomly, I was kind of just trying to talk to him a little bit, and he would not even hardly acknowledge that I was there.
Because when you go with such a large group and there's a lot of youth, there's all kinds of rules, you know. First of all, you're wearing, like, if you wear a skirt, it's gonna cover your toes, no makeup, and you just graduated, so no, like, love at first sight, none of that stuff.
No flirting with the youth.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it was, yeah. But then she started talking about basketball, and I was like, ooh.
No, even then he wouldn't pay attention. But so we got to get our visas. So there was my opportunity. I said, oh, can you tell this? I grabbed him. Can you tell this guy that I'm 23? And he was like, you're 23? And so the rest was kind of history. I mean, it involved some other stuff, but that's how we met.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let Sue tell most of the story.
Okay. Back in the days of the Pony Express. Yeah. Ooh, it was a long time ago. So it was my second semester of my freshman year at college. I got a letter from this guy. I had no idea who he was. You don't know me, but I know a friend of yours, and he told me about you, and I just thought maybe we could meet. And so I was happened to be dating someone else, and I wrote back and said, I'm sorry.
Don't try this at home.
I said, I'm sorry, I'm dating someone else. And he wrote back and said, I'm not asking you to marry me, I just want to meet you. And so I wrote back and said, okay, it was all by letters. This takes a while. And so I said, okay, I'll meet you and we can be friends. So at that summer when we got home from college, we met and we went out as friends for the whole summer and had such a wonderful time together. And Tom knew I was dating someone else, and so he respected every aspect of that, and we had just such creative dates, because back in the 70s, the typical date was you took your date to the movies, and then you went to McDonald's for something to eat. And the whole summer that we dated, never once did we do that. We just did all sorts of fun activities that hardly cost anything at all, but were so creative. And that's how, not that he was cheap or anything, it was, but he got to know me. I was very quiet, and so he would plan things where he could talk and get to know me and ask me questions. So he got to know a lot about me, but because I was not a talker, I didn't get to know a whole lot about him until later. But it was just a super fun summer going out as friends.
Yeah, I had never met anyone like Sue. I prayed for the right person. And when I met her, I realized that had I settled for my pick, I would have settled about 10 rungs short of who she was. I didn't know there was anyone like her. On our second date, I knew I was going to marry her. I knew it. And I remember being at the red light at 8th Street and Chestnut and Lebanon, waiting to go. You know there's a red light there. You know 8th Street and Chestnut. I was at that red light, and I thought, I'm going to marry her. And I thought, do you think I should tell her? You're right, no. I thought that's a bad mistake. But I knew it. I was so impressed. And so I spent that summer really trying to win her. And it was wonderful. We never kissed. We never held hands. And we got to know each other so well. It was just, I say all my pictures of that summer have frosted corners because the memories are so wonderful of that. You know, we've been married 47 years. I can't tell you what happened some decades, but I can tell you those dates in those early years. So, you know, I tell people will say, do you think there's one right person for you? And some people will say, no, I think there are a multiple of different people, that would be just as good. I don't agree with that, because the only way that could be is if there are two men that are exactly the same. There has to be a little deal breaker in there somewhere. Does that make sense? And I think the only way you can find that person is by really trusting God to bring that right person into your life. So that's our beginning. Hey, the reason we're doing this, I said this on a Sunday morning, maybe a couple, but through the years, men in particular, single men, have come up to me and said, listen, I know how to date. I know how to date the way the world dates. I have no idea, and this is almost verbatim how they say it. I have no idea how to date like a Christian. I don't know what that looks like. Could you possibly sometime deal with that? And that's the purpose of tonight. So I'm going to throw some questions out, and we had some fun with these on Friday night on the phone, so we'll see what happens here. So what is the purpose for dating? Or can Christians date just for fun? What are your thoughts? What is the purpose of dating?
I'm going to go. I think dating is, I don't think Christians should date just for fun, because you're setting yourself up for heartache. But I do think it's important that you date someone that you're interested in and that you think maybe could be marriage material for yourself. And like my husband said, I think it's really important to start praying about that. Maybe make, a prayer journal and write down some things that are important to you. The attraction thing, that's kind of a given. But you need to remember you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. And, that gets hard sometimes. And so you want to make sure the character of the man or woman who you're going to date is going to be something that, first off, is, he has godly traits. That's the most important thing, obviously, that he's seeking the Lord, but also maybe some specific things to you and your character. So, I think dating is important, but not just for fun.
I also think it's interesting that nowhere in the Bible does it talk about dating. And so, I believe that you have to enter it with an intention for marriage. So, as you're considering and praying for someone, you have to ask yourself and go to the Lord and just say, are you ready for marriage? Are you ready to move in that direction? And are you even considering moving in that direction? And the Lord had given us a scripture, Amos 3:3, that says, can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? I really feel that dating, you find out, we talked a lot and got to know each other. Do you want kids? Do you want to live on a farm? Do you want to live in the city? Things that are, big deals, I think, later on, some of the things that we had talked about. And is it the same? Are you moving in the same direction, which should be towards the things of the Lord? But, are you agreeing as you're taking steps together, or is it coming together?
Yeah, I would agree with both of them. Prior to even approaching Betty or the pastors about her, I had a good idea of what her walk looked like. I had heard enough about her reputation. I saw her involvement in the church. I had a good idea that was someone I wanted to be involved with on a deeper level. And then as I prayed and talked to people, and we began to talk, and before we went on that date, I was already seeking the Lord, is this someone you want me to continue to pursue? Dating for fun is only good to me, someone with my past, is only going to lead to me breaking my personal convictions of things that I know the Lord doesn't want me to do. So I think Betty and I both agreed that dating for fun wasn't something that we were interested in. We were dating, moving towards marriage from the get-go.
And he had children. He has children, too, which you want to know, before we move anything further, that this is of the Lord. This is the direction that we're supposed to be moving towards. So.
Okay.
And also, with social media or movies, you always get this beautiful picture of happiness, and it's, you're used to seeing short videos that make you super happy, or some YouTuber or somebody that you follow that gives you that happy feeling. dating towards marriage is a beautiful thing, but you don't know how much more, like it's this little compared to what you're going to be spending the rest of your life. And you need to be like, it's something like if I could go back in time and tell myself that, you know, which God really protects. When you pray, he will protect that this time. But just to be careful that, not to get the wrong idea of like the dating is going to be this, or the marriage will be this beautiful thing. And obviously, if you're a guy and you tell the girl in the second date that you know you're going to marry her, she might run away from you, so, but you need to like, like you did, right?
To yourself.
But keep it to yourself, yeah. But I had a similar feeling too with Mindy. I was like, I could never be in a serious relationship before. I was always moving around, like different countries or state, and so this one was like, this is a weird feeling. Like, this is the one? Like, all these things are happening, and I was always against actually dating a Christian girl, even though my dad is a pastor. I was going through a hard time through my youth and being rebellious, you know, in some areas, and wow, God changed that, because he was like, look at this girl. She's super cool. She's Christian. You can have so much fun. You can be yourself.
Yeah, that's important.
But yeah, don't think that, you know, that short period of time. Think about also the bigger picture, because you're going to learn a lot. And you will love each other even more as the years go by. And you have to work hard at it.
So for those that are here that aren't dating anyone right now, here's a fun question. How can you tell when someone is interested in you or not interested in you?
I think it was awesome how he approached me, because there was no, like, he was very clear on like what he wanted. And I just, to me, I feel like, you know, you really got to check your heart. Like, is there manipulation in it? Do you have a desire, you know, but you're playing the friend, quote unquote, friend role? You know, I would just challenge you to really seek the Lord about that, because people can make the idea of marriage or the idea of a wife or a husband an idol. And so if that's what you're constantly thinking on, you know, I would just challenge you to go before the Lord, you know, and I lost my train of thought.
Clear communication.
Yes, clear communication. He came up and let me know very clearly what his motives were. And I was in shock. I went back to my best friend and said, can you believe that he, you know, told me he wanted to be more than friends? And then he said, would you pray about it? And she was like, well, did you pray about it? And I hadn't, so, at that time.
Okay? How can you tell if someone's not interested in you?
Well,
Wait, let me give a little introduction. When I finally met her family, I didn't know that, I mean, she's beautiful, and it was everything for me, like, it was just awesome. But then I meet the family, and then I realized, wow, this girl, every guy tried calling her, she will not answer, and they're like, this is crazy, we don't understand what's happening. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I was starting to feel more insecure about it. So you're the right person to say it.
well, so I did date in some not so good relationships. So I think after that happened, I got more specific about what I wanted. And I mean, praise the Lord, I did feel, you know, women sometimes get to this point where they feel kind of desperate, where you almost feel like you could settle. But like Marco said, God really protected me from that. But I was really specific about, like, I kind of had in my brain what I wanted, and in Marcos too, I'd never met anybody like him. And this is kind of off topic, but when you're looking for somebody, you know, look at how they treat other people. That's a big thing. That can tell you a lot about their character. And that's really important, because this is someone you're going to be with for the rest of your life. And yeah, so really, you know, look at their character. But I think, I mean, these days it might be difficult to see, you know, to tell if somebody likes you or not. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If they don't give you a second chance, if you're calling them and they don't call you back, or, right, that's pretty.
Yeah, we brought this up at a youth group many years ago, and we said to the women, the girls, we said to the girls, can you tell when a girl's interested in a guy? And all the girls in the youth group said, absolutely. And all the guys are like, what? Oh, absolutely. And this is what they said. We said, how can you tell? They said, it's the look. And I said, the look? They said, oh yeah, the look. Women look at a guy with a certain look. And all the guys are trying to tell me what this look looks like. I desperately want to know what this look looks like. All these girls know and we don't. Remember that? It was so, the guys were like, you're driving me crazy. What does this look like? So I could know. Yeah. And
when I had to translate at the 10-day, which it felt like, that was perfect time, but I had to be translating, and she would sit up front. And out of all people, it was just like, no. And she would like stare. And then I'd be like, what did you just say?
You know what he translated.
wasn't your best translation 10 days?
We've had one constant argument since the day we've met, and that's whether she gave me a look or not. Because I know she did, because I wouldn't have approached her if she didn't, because I'm too much of a chicken. So I needed the look first.
Okay.
And once I got the look,
and my best friend
it was
called
it.
me out on it too.
Yeah.
She told me, you looked at him. I've never seen you at anybody like. And I'm like, no.
There it is.
No.
And a little hard to get is a good long way to go, right? Like it's a good thing.
It's a good
Hard
thing.
to get, yeah.
So how do you know if a relationship is headed in the right direction? How do you know if it's going somewhere? It's going where it should go.
Yeah, so Betty came up with this answer last night, and it was a really good answer. It's a simple one. If the relationship is drawing you to the Lord and not away from the Lord, it's a pretty good sign that you're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
If the people that your accountability or your mentors or the people that are involved in your spiritual life are approving it and encouraging it, it's another good sign. If the relationship is pulling you away from the Lord and that's becoming an idol and she's getting bigger and he's getting smaller,
Yep.
time for a check.
Good.
The Bible says in a multitude of counsel there is wisdom, and so who is your circle? Like, what is your circle? And it also says honor your father and your mother. What are your parents speaking into it? What are your godly friends, or if you're being discipled, what are they saying about the person? Or what are people saying about them? I went around asking a lot of people about.
Did I ever tell you what my dad said? Any football fans? Football fans? I was told I was out kicking my coverage. I'm not sure what that means. I think that was the kind way of him saying she's out of your league. Did I ever say that? Yeah.
And how can you tell if a relationship's going in the wrong direction? What happens? What does it look like? What are warning signs?
So I think a big one, if that relationship is drawing you to break personal boundaries or personal convictions that the Lord's given you, and you're compromising your walk, would be a red flag for
Good.
for us.
Good. I'm gonna ask Dan to address that after the next question. So, a question is, should a man ask the girl's father to date? Do you think that's?
You asking me?
Well, yeah, I'll start with you. Yeah. Do you?
Oh, sure.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah, Dan, yours
Check.
works. Yours works.
Check 1, 2. Good, thank you. Yes. Yeah, I would have a problem if guy started dating my daughter and I didn't know about it ahead of time.
Okay.
So yes.
All right.
And contrary to popular belief, I'm not the kind of dad that sits around with a shotgun and makes threats. Not too much.
All right. Marcus, you shared a little story that we thought was kind of fun about that.
Yeah, Mindy is from Oklahoma, and her parents, and I kind of lived a similar way in the country in Argentina, but nothing like here. So you get if you want to think about the stereotype cowboy with the mustache and
It's
the
handlebar.
Oh, sorry, the handle. Yeah, exactly. That's what her dad is basically, literally. And just meeting them for the first time was very like, she's like, no, he's such a teddy bear. I'm like, babe, he's showing me he's like 16 gauge gun there on the side. You know?
He has no gun. I mean, he does, but he doesn't even hunt.
But that's how I feel. I saw it now.
He gave him the look.
But I ended up going and asking them, him and his wife, like together. I took him out to eat, and yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, but I thought it was the right thing to do because they knew from the beginning. I don't know if they questioned it too much in the beginning to you, but they were like, there's something that it's different about her. And so it was really nice to hear that, and they'll give you some advice too. He gave me some advice. They didn't have a really good marriage overall, but God brought them back together. And so he said some things that it was really, really good, and maybe they make more sense more as you go through the years of being married, you know? But yeah.
It was very comforting to me for him to go and get a blessing from my pastor. I didn't know a whole lot about him, and so for them to approve let me feel that it was safe to even consider, and move forward. And they filled me in on, some of his background and stuff like that. And so for me, I had seen a lot of really ugly relationships, been in quite a few ugly relationships. And so I actually went around telling people I had the gift of singleness. And Peggy Bruning, the woman who discipled me, she kind of didn't take it serious. But it was because of, just the stuff I went through in the past that I kind of built a wall around that. But because he went to them and they, I was willing to open that part of my heart to even consider to pray. I don't even think I would have prayed if he didn't go that route, for my sake.
So here's a big question. What should your personal limits be on a date as it relates to physical contact? What should personal limits be? Any thoughts on that?
I definitely think that that's something that you should pray. But we both had strong sexual sin in our past, and so that was a very important topic for us to talk about when we did start moving forward with dating. And I just encourage that you respect each other's and you hold the line. Like some of the things were a little different for him than they were for me, and we just knew we're never to be alone. We were never alone in a car. We were never alone. Well, the time that we were alone in a house, we messed up, and then we called the pastors, and we're like, we made a mistake, and Peggy and everybody, and just confessed it. But our heart was to, align back to the Lord and get back on track so that we knew that when we moved to marriage, that we were going to honor the Lord with our relationship.
Yeah, and if I could just, this was told to me, and I thought it was probably some of the wisest counsel I've ever got. Men, it's our responsibility to have self-control. We didn't slip. I allowed the slip, and that was something that as a leader, I should have demonstrated better with, because I really do believe the dating kind of arena really gives us a chance to build what's going to happen after the altar. I mean, if as we exhibited self-control, she trusts me now when I go out of town, or I can trust her if she was out of town, because we've both exhibited boundaries and the ability to control our fleshly desires. When we were in love, we knew we were called to marriage, but we still had to wait. So that time just spoke volumes into our marriage and helps us now where we are, in regards to trust. And
Dan, you had a really good thought about, we said earlier.
A couple things, I kind of switched them since I talked to you.
Okay.
One of the things I talk, like if a suitor comes calling and wants to date my daughter, and I'm good with that, the one big rule I make is that it's usually the guy that pursues a physical relationship in a relationship, and it's the girl who puts the brakes on. And I would tell the guys that that's not what I want. What I want is something that you know her convictions and you champion that. And I said, I'm a man of very few rules, but I said, that's the big one.
And you said that to your sons too, right?
Yeah, I said it to my son.
Take that, apply that to what you told your sons.
I sat down and I said, I just told them, like, exact same kind of setting, that when you have a girl you're interested in, that you find out what her convictions are, what her standards are, and you champion those so that she'll never have to not trust you.
Those are very wise words, folks. Those are very wise words. Yeah. So, personal limits, that's different for everybody. Some people it's no holding hands. Some people it's no kissing. Some people it's kissing. Some people it's we're going to stop there. But I think the safe thing is that you don't get in a position where it could go beyond where you want it to go. Yeah. And that's in a place where you're by yourself, where you're laying down together. That's not a good idea.
Expect pressure to it. Betty and I made our boundaries well known. It went on to my family, and my family would often make comments.
They what?
They would make comments saying
They make fun of us because we were in our 30s.
Yeah,
And they're not. They wouldn't have cared if we slept together. It wouldn't have been a.
But I just realized that that's probably the way Christians date is not the way the world dates. So that there should be an expectation that you're going to maybe made fun of a little bit, but those boundaries, they pay dividends in the marriage.
His mother and I stayed in a hotel room together, and she went back to him and said, "Haha, I slept with your future wife before you did." True story.
Yeah. She thought that was funny.
She did. She thought it was very funny.
Yeah. I ran across a statistic years ago. Listen closely. 80% of women who are sexually active in their relationship expect that the man will marry them. The men in those relationships, only 12% think they're going to marry her. So 80% of the women think that guy's going to marry them. 8% of the men do not think they're going to marry her. Do you see a little disconnect there? Mm-hmm. What's happening? So the woman has this expectation, the guy does not. So
one thing I think this is good, like, don't date such a young age. My opinion, maybe I don't represent you guys, but I feel like if you date at such a young age, you haven't understood a lot yet about relationship. It's better just to have friends, go out bowling, go do things, go to, have a relationship with God also. Because the more of a relationship you have with God, He's gonna protect you. He's gonna show you the right thing if you're looking for that. But then, definitely, like, these days since you asked us, and we're like, why us? Why not someone else to come up here and talk? But we've been talking a lot about it, and we're like, oh man, we were so young. We were 23. I mean, I think that's not bad of an age, but there's so much more that we've learned, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I wasn't thinking then, or like, what a dummy. But she still had this love towards me and was able to make it work. But yeah.
I know when I was in college, every family dynamic is different, and maybe you don't have a father figure or something, but like Betty said, your pastor, he's your leader, and it's important that you are getting mentored or discipled. In college, I went to a really awesome church, and it was a Bible teaching church, which I learned so much in the short time I was there, but they encouraged young women to meet with older women for accountability. And, that doesn't have to be like something that you go out and say, hey, will you be my accountability partner? Just find somebody that you can spend some time with and share with them, maybe some boundaries that you would like to keep, and ask them to help keep you accountable. Maybe they can disciple you. Just really spend time getting to know the Lord and getting to know, older women or men who are in the Lord and who can actually help you along and figure this whole dating thing out. I think that was really good advice for me.
Yeah. Betty?
While I was praying over our time together, we read the one-year Bible, and the Lord, it's, exactly touches base with what Mindy is sharing, but in Titus 2, verse 4, it says, these older women must teach and train the younger women to love their husbands and their children, to live wisely and be pure, to work in their homes, to do good, and to be submissive to their husbands. Then they will not bring shame on the word of God. And so, I do encourage you, along with her, if there's a woman, and this is to the women, but also to the men as well, or a man that's, you like their walk with the Lord, you respect, who they are and how they're carrying you see their marriage or their family life. I would encourage you, if you don't have somebody now, that you would, because the Bible also tells us our hearts are deceitful above all things. And so this is an area I was so scared about, because I just love the Lord so much, and I served in residential women's discipleship for quite 7 years, and I've seen time and time again that this is where a woman tends to get led away from the Lord. And so it's important to have people involved in your walk, and to be transparent. If you're moving forward with somebody, this is the person that you're saying, I think this can be my husband, or I think this can be my wife. Like, communication, build your communication. And we had some awkward conversations, but we had to, and they were good, and they helped us to really see where each of us stood, and know really his struggles look different than my struggles. And I knew how to be praying for him, and different things that we could move forward in our dating. And so, I just encourage you guys that if you don't have that in your life, to be praying. Pray, God is faithful. Ask the Lord, I want to share with someone, help me to find a woman that I can speak to and be transparent about what I'm going through.
I think one of the most important points is something that someone said here, is that is this person helping me draw closer to the Lord, or are they taking me further away? That's huge. And listen, ladies, you want to be loved. And what allows your husband to love you is for him to be in a relationship with Jesus and live in the relationship of love that he has with Jesus. That's what enables him to love you. Because if he doesn't experience that love with Jesus, the best love he can give you is the love that he experienced in his home. That's the best he knows. So if he's drawing closer to the Lord, if through him being in your life, you're drawing closer to the Lord, that's a good sign. If because she's in your life, gentlemen, you're drawing closer to the Lord, that is a very good sign. If they're taking the other way, that's a very bad sign. Another thing that I see that women, I think mostly women make, is they see the potential in a man, and they pursue the relationship based on the potential. That's a good thought, but you don't do that. You become fruit inspectors. You inspect the fruit that their life is producing. And based on that fruit, that's your decision. Not the potential for fruit, but the fruit. And that is really important. So I think we'll take some questions. If you have some questions, can you kind of raise your hand, Austin? If you can go around and collect them, or maybe if anybody has some questions. Anybody? Okay. Wow, we answered every single question you have. We do have other things to cover, so let's keep going. If you do, just kind of get them to Austin, or slide them to the end of the row, or let somebody in the row know that you have them. So how do you plan some fun dates? Any thoughts on this? Is that important to you?
Yeah.
Our first date was so special, and it just showed me how much he was paying attention to me, and it literally touched base of everything in my heart. And so he took me to a free event, which I'm like, okay, he's wise with his money. But it was in the Poconos. It's the Winterfest, and you can luge for free. They do like ice carving competitions. It's like a full day event, and he he said, I want you to come with my friends, and we're all going to head out to and so it was like our first date was like this big, long, full day, but it was just really special because I'm very active. Like, it touched base on things that were very important to me that just showed me like, okay, Lord, this is my man.
What's that mean?
There's a ton of public places to go, museums, sporting events, and that's what we looked for. Because I think when you're in a group when you're in a group setting, but in a public place, it just takes the pressure off. There's things that serve as a distraction, so you're not, you could just be involved in the area that you're in and not so maybe nervous to talk and fill every moment with, one-on-one. Does that make sense? There's Philadelphia. There's you could date for a whole entire year in Philadelphia.
We went to a lot of museums.
I would write that's my recommendation. Would be good public.
I think Sue has a thought.
Well, unbeknownst to me, when Tom started dating me, he had a whole list of fun dates. I didn't know that, but he had come up with them before we actually met. And they were things like creek stomping. And he said, we're going creek stomping tonight, so wear old shoes. You tell me what to wear so I was appropriately dressed. And that's exactly what we did. We went stomping in creeks.
Down the Susquehanna. No, I'm kidding.
And I remember one date we went up to Mount Gretna, and you put a blindfold on me to see what it would be like to be blind. And he led me around on the streets in Mount Gretna.
We had
fun, yes.
You may not want to use this list.
But no, it was a serious thing to see what it would be like to not be able to have your sight. And that's what we experienced. And I think we swapped then. And there were so many other. The funniest one that I can think of is he said, okay, we're going on a picnic. I'll take care of everything. And we went towards Hershey. And right before the Hershey Chocolate Factory, in the bushes, it says Hershey Cocoa, I think. Is that what it says? So it's evening, but still light because it's summer. And he opens his trunk and pulls out a folding table, 2 chairs, 2 hoagies, a little vase with flowers, and he sets it up in the middle of the golf course right there in Hershey. And we had a picnic. So lots of fun dates that were very creative on his part.
We had a lot of fun. Dan, you have some questions?
Yes.
Great.
I like this one. How long do you date before getting married?
Wow, boy.
I honestly believe it just depends on the couple, and just seek the Lord together. I don't think there's like an answer across the board, that it should look like this or. I truly, God is faithful, and I truly believe that if you guys are seeking Him together, that He's going to lead each and every step and the way that He has planned for your relationship.
May get in trouble for this one, but I think once you've got confirmation in the Word, confirmation by your counsel, and you just both people know, yes, the Lord's calling us to marriage. Keep it short so that you don't burn with lust in that area. The Lord's told you yes. Go ahead and start going in that direction.
Right.
Personally, Betty and I.
Marcus? You want to?
Yeah, or until she tells you it's time.
Yeah.
I want to share a thought here. It seems, and this is my experience, doesn't mean it's true, it's just been my experience, that typically guys are the pursuer to try to get married sooner. You know, that's not the way it's portrayed in movies, but I think that typically happens that way. And so what I find a lot of times is that the woman, at some point in a relationship, this isn't always, but sometimes, the woman in the relationship starts to back away a little bit. She like just maybe a little more time with her friends, with her family, and just needs a little time. And the guy reads that as he has to push in and clamp down to keep the relationship because he feels that she's pulling away. And it's exactly the wrong thing. There are relationships that could have been saved and been great relationships if the guy just would have backed away and given her space. So guys, if you're ever in that situation and she just needs a little time, just give that. I mean, don't try to control that. Just listen. You've surrendered this to the Lord, right? If the Lord wants us to be, then let it be. If he doesn't, then it won't be. But don't you try to control it. Don't you try to manipulate her to give you the time you want her to give. Give her that space. She'll love you all the more for it. It'll make the relationship stronger. And this happens a lot. It really does.
And when you communicate a lot, you know, even at such a young age, you can still communicate, be open with what's happening. Our relationship dating was
We talked.
long distance, and it was the biggest investment I've done in my life. Flying so many times. I think in 1 month I did it like 2 or 3 times. But anyways,
No.
2.
But
Yeah.
that meant we talked a lot on the phone, which was actually really good because we
Yeah.
got to know each other before yeah.
But it's the right timing is with me. I was like, well, first I want to make sure I have this because I have to pay my
Save his money.
debt and money and all this stuff, and we talked. And one thing, I made sure that I never told her I love you until it was like for real getting serious.
Good.
And I would be like, I really like you.
Dan.
This question's good following the last question. Is it okay for a girl to make the first move?
I would have liked that. I had to win her, remember? So, boy, what do you think?
It's a different day than when we were
It
dating.
is a different day.
Even with me, I mean, I would still suggest that the man makes the first move. I mean, if biblically the man is the leader, and so my conviction is that he should make the first move. But that might not be everybody's conviction. I don't know.
I kind of stand with what you say, but that's my own personal thoughts on it. I just continue to encourage that you would just pray and seek the Lord if you feel that the Lord's moving you in that direction. But again, I believe that God will prepare the man. He calls him to be the lead, and so if he's, he's going to speak to him and move in his heart is what I think. But
Okay, Dan.
Can I speak on that one real quick?
Yeah, sure.
When we were dating, there was a few times that you would let me know that you were ready for, you would send the signals to me that you were ready for another layer of our relationship to develop. I remember, you let me know it was safe to ask you to go on our first physical date. I was ready a while before, but you would always let me know when it was okay to move to another spot of our dating. When you felt safe to meet my family, when you felt safe to meet my kids, when you were ready for a different, and I like that. That made me feel really that I wasn't pushing you too fast.
Mark, just you saying that, we all hear the respect you had for her in putting limits on that and letting her. That's beautiful.
Remember, she's also a 2-time combat veteran, so I was gonna play it safe.
Yeah, that's a smart move.
Yeah.
Dan.
How do you respond when your boyfriend or girlfriend flirts with another person?
Well, that should be a good sign that you might be with the wrong person. I mean, that's what I would say, because then you know, okay, you need to be thinking in the future. If they're doing things that you don't like now, then when you get married, it's going to be amplified times 100. So, yeah, you don't want to deal with that in a marriage.
I tell people when you get married, you give up your right to be cute. You stop being cute. You know what I mean? Or you're cute to the waitress, You're cute to the girl at work. You stop being cute. Be cute to your wife, okay? You're not that cute anyway, so don't knock it off. But any of those, yeah, I'd say the same thing. If you're the relationship you're pursuing, there's flirtation going on, that is a very bad sign. For you to think that's going to change when you get married, you do not count on that. In fact, it's like you said, it's probably going to ramp up, not go the other way.
Talk about being, wait a minute. Talk about being unequally yoked, and even from a Christian perspective, should a mature Christian date a baby Christian?
Boy, oh boy, that is upsetting.
I just feel that it goes back to the Amos 3:3. Can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? And so people may be at different places in their walk, but as you're moving forward and praying, together, is the Lord aligning the things in your heart? And He's going to do that if it is like. I mean, I'm not trying to be all foofy or whatever, but I couldn't have a more perfect partner for me, and there's no perfect relationship, and there's no perfect dating, but we serve a perfect God, and so He knew that this was the perfect man for me, and so, my thoughts are, like, as you're moving forward, like, are things aligning, and are you moving towards the Lord together? I don't think necessarily it can't be, they haven't been walking with the Lord as long, and God will unite you in those things, I think.
So when we were dating, in the very beginning, there was a time where, due to certain situations, I was removed from our dating, and I had to spend a period of time with the Lord to re-strengthen and realign. And that was important because I could not be of any value to our relationship until my relationship with him was completely on point. I make a reference, and I don't know if it would be understood. If the foundation of your relationship with the Lord is not strong enough, how could you expect it to carry anything else? It can't carry the weight of a partner if you and the Lord aren't solidified to begin with. It's like concrete. It looks like it's dry and hard on the surface, but too much pressure put on it, it's going to crack. So I guess what I'm trying to say is whether new baby Christian or 20-year Christian, it depends on, I think, the walk. If He's your Lord and Savior and you understand that He's number one, then you're ready to add on number two, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that clear?
Yeah.
Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
Yeah. Sue and I have often said, we know women as pastors, we know women in the church, that if they got a guy, they love the Lord, don't have a strong background, but if they met a guy that was on fire, they would just rock it. Mm-hmm. Have you known couples like that? Mm-hmm. And so I don't think you necessarily have to be at the same level, but I think, Mark, that's your point. If the desires are, the heart's right, that can really be beautiful. Dan.
What is a normal, healthy age gap?
Wow.
Tom?
Wow.
Mindy?
Sorry, I heard you on the radio the other day talking about me
We're like
abusing
a
you
month apart, I think.
About ages.
about age.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The older you get, the less that's an issue. So someone that's 50 to marry someone that's 70, that's not that big a deal. Someone that's 20 marrying someone that's 40, not that it can't work, but boy, you're really living in different worlds. You really are. Dan, do you have thoughts on that one? The age gap?
Yeah, what you said, pretty much with, I find that couples, when there's a big age gap, they tend to do a lot of talking to see if this is going to work more than the average. So in some ways, maybe they're better prepared, potentially, because they've talked so much about having an age gap.
Yeah, it's a fair question.
My parents, my dad is 14 years older than my mom.
Okay.
And they've always told me since I was young, like, date a Christian or marry somebody that is a Christian.
Okay.
You know, and it wasn't necessarily like, oh, they need to be at this level or whatnot. And at a young age, you question a lot of things when you're a teenager or you're starting to be a young adult. And so if you don't get desperate and focus on some of the things that you're trying to build in your life before a serious relationship, I think it's good to wait it out a little bit.
You do a lot of growing and maturing.
Yeah, and I think God also made marriage and sex to be the best thing in marriage. And so at a younger age, the more you wait on that, the better, because, that's the hardest maybe at that point. We're not going to act like that's not true. And so the older you get, for me I'm like, what, you're 23? No way. So that was a good point where I just graduated from college and I still needed to think about, the loans and all that, but it was a good experience to be outside your house. You were starting to be a little bit more independent, and if you have people that are praying for you and following up with you, which it was hard for me because I was out of the home at 14, so it was difficult in some areas because I'm like, I don't know, what do I do about this? But definitely God was always faithful no matter what. But yeah.
All right. Dan, question.
What kind of questions should you ask on a date?
Boy.
Have you ever been to like the events? I think about the women's retreat where there's just these fun like icebreakers that get you like talking and getting to know each other, but they're just like silly. Like, what kind of pet would you want other than? I just think like ways of getting to know each other better, and it doesn't have to be like all deep, like how many kids do you want on the first date, but just like, what's a secret that you never told your parents, or something just fun to make it light and get to know each other is what I think.
Be yourself. Don't try to act like something. Don't build this image of you that you're not. Be yourself, because if that person really is interested in you, they're going to be interested in who you are. And the looks is, to me, the secondary or equally, I don't know, but that, be yourself. And that was hard for me, actually, growing up, to be myself or portray this. I was trying to always be like the cool or I even made it worse. So with Mindy Sue, she made me feel comfortable. And also it was really neat because I was like, I'm the pastor's son, and however much she knew about the Bible and all that, I was like, wow, and she's so cool. Like, and there was like all this great mix, 23. That's how my mind was. Yeah.
Hey, the art of conversation is asking questions. It's just that simple. You ask questions. You want to be a good date, you take a genuine interest in your date, and you ask questions, and you don't talk about yourself. Mm-hmm. If all your date does is talk about himself or herself, now think of this through. If that's all he does, the first time he shows up at your family for Thanksgiving, he's going to sit there and talk about himself all night. How will that play in the family? Mm-hmm. Right? So you're gonna learn how good a partner this is going to be by the interest they take in you. Because if all they think about themselves is that's going to be manifested by them just talking about themselves. So you'll know if you've got somebody good on the line by them asking you questions. Mm-hmm.
So I think a big one, I would say don't ask any questions that you're not willing to receive and appreciate. There were certain things when Ben and I were dating, I didn't have to know at that point. I wasn't prepared to know at that point. Yeah. And I would only ask her that I was ready to have grace with whatever her answer was. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the same way.
Mm-hmm. So to make it small, show interest in that person. You want to know more about them.
That's right. Dan.
If I rephrase here, I just got approval to date / talk to someone, should there be a limit on how much you talk to them per day? Which, when is it too much?
Dan, you want to address that? What's your thoughts on that one?
I think I could probably speak for maybe practices that we have here
Good.
in the ministry.
Go ahead.
I think that a happy medium, somewhere between with a couple, because usually when you're a couple, you start dating, all you want to do is hang out together and talk forever. And I think somewhere between that and 2 minutes a week.
Strike a happy balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those always seem to be points of struggle for leadership and people who are interested in somebody else.
You know, I think probably that would be, depending on your age, that would be a good place for parents to speak into that. You know, you're just on the phone too much. You know, you're just
Right.
I was serving as a leader in a residential discipleship ministry, and neither one of us had dated as a Christian before, and I was just super nervous because the Lord had called me to be an example, and I didn't know how, and so I was very clear with him. I'm like, we can talk on Tuesdays when the women are at the Lost Coin doing a Bible study from this time to this time. And he respected it, but I would get so excited, for those times. And we didn't converse a whole lot, but it just, you're building a relationship. So I would just take your time to get to know each other and not put pressure on either sides. But I mean, that's not really.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, I thought of all these. My kids date when they were dating and stuff. They were always on the cell phone texting, and there's probably not some inherent evil there, but it was an irritant for me because I could hear up in the bedroom at 1:30 in the morning, click, 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 click. And personal issue for me. So that's all I have to say. How do you know if you're going to marry a person that you are dating?
We talked about this afternoon. Now this is after 47 years of marriage, but looking back, it really ought to be not that I can't live without her, but I really think I can be the person that could take care of her for the rest of her life, better than anyone else. When I met Sue, I remember thinking, she was beautiful and sweet and kind, but I could tell that, she would maybe be, that a man could take advantage of her. And I knew I would not do that. And I wanted to be the guy that would take care of her. I did. And I never told her this until years later. But when we dated, thought I can be that guy. You don't tell her that. You have to prove that. How would you say that? You can't say it. But I knew it. And so, when you know you're right in a relationship, it's when it becomes what I can give to that person, not that I can't live without them. To say I can't live without you, I get that. But it does sound, if you think about it, it sounds a little selfish, right? It's what I can't live without. Do you want to spend your life giving to your partner all that they need? Do you think you're the person that can fulfill them the most, can bring them joy, can help them achieve their dreams? That's the goal. And again, I think that, 47 years of marriage, you start looking at things a little differently. But it really does become about that person.
And you learn that through your marriage, I think, too. How much you think you're in love when you first get married. You don't even have really an idea about what love is, because it's so much more than you're attracted to this person. And I think it kind of goes along with what we talked about. Know what you're looking for and make sure that the guy you're dating or the girl you're dating, that you guys have the same goals in mind. That this kind of depends probably on your age, but if you are dating to marry somebody and you continue to see that you guys are really working out and you know, your characters match and thing, then kind of like you guys said, there's no reason to wait a long time. I think you'll know it's a person. I mean, when I saw Marcos, it was like I had never met anyone like him, and once we were just friends through the 10 days, but I remember the youth girls were like, "Oh no, you're never gonna see him again," and I knew I would. Wow. I knew I would see him again, and so
Give me a kiss to remind me.
it was a little peck. That's all it was.
It was big to him.
That's all you needed.
Little from you, big to him.
So, yeah.
We serve a big God, and I had so much junk from my past that I wouldn't date unless the Lord told me very clearly, and He was faithful. He gave me a very clear word, and then as we move forward, everything just moved clearly in the path. But ask the Lord to make it clear to you. That's His desire. You know, seek Him, spend time with Him. I said, Lord, I was nervous about it, and I just wanted to be a good example to the women I was over, and I wanted to honor God in what I was doing. And so God was very faithful to be very clear. And I mean, it was kind of weird because He told me this was my husband before we even went out on a date. And I shared that with my best friend and like the women that were in my life. But God knew my heart and knew I needed that, and so just seek Him and ask Him to give you, just clarity, and He's faithful to do that.
And when Mindy went through, when we were dating her, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Things weren't going too well at some points, with her parents and her being the oldest, taking so much weight and being almost the referee at times. Sorry, I'm sharing kind of like a little bit.
Okay.
I think it gives contrast or context of to me, it made me realize, wow, I knew she was the right person because I could see how no one has ever opened up like that with me, and to trust and me be a safe place, which I didn't know that was what that was called. And I think God built us through that, and to promise each other, never say, I hate you, or I'm going to leave you. To this day, we pray for that never happens, but just little things like that it's unique for every couple. So whatever happened to me or them, it's not going to be the same, but God is what glues things together. So.
I have one thing to say. If I don't get to say it, then I'm going to say it now. Because my parents did have such a rocky marriage, whenever I got into college, I wanted to learn everything I could about what marriage was supposed to be like and what a godly marriage looked like. So I loved to read books and do studies. And I found a specific one that to this day, I love it. And I go back and I read it. It's by a man named, he's a pastor in Texas, Tommy Nelson. And he does a study on the Song of Solomon. And then he wrote a book called the Book of Romance, I think that's what it is. But he goes through that verse by verse, and he talks about dating. He talks about finding somebody that you think you want to marry, and he goes through marriage. It's really good. And if you guys are in the dating scene, I would really encourage you to check that out.
Okay, I think we're out of time for questions, but a couple things on dating. On the back of your sheets, they're in the back. Austin, would you mind, back in my mail slot, there are a whole lot of these on etiquette. If you could hand these out. So I'm going to read through some of these. So listen, if you're about dating, how should a gentleman ask a lady to go out on a date? Would you like to go to dinner with me Wednesday night? And the gentleman should call or email or text the day before to confirm. Would you like to go out to dinner with me on Wednesday night? That's simple. A couple little rules, let her know what kind of date you're going on so she would know how to dress. That's a nice thing to do. Be on time for your date. Ladies, when a man calls you and asks you out on a date, but you'd rather remain friends with him than date him, say, Carl, thank you for asking, but I think I'd like to keep our relationship on the level of friendship that it's currently at. Just something like that. When someone asks you out on a date and you don't know them and you don't have any desire to get to know them, ladies, you would say, thank you for asking me, but I'm going to have to say no. Short, sweet, not a lot of commentary. If you're asked to go out on a date by someone you would like to go out with, but the timing isn't good when they ask you, George, thank you for asking me. I really would like to. It's just a little busy right now, but I could reach out to you when I'm not juggling quite so much, if that's okay. I would really like to go out. Listen, ladies, guys are really, we are knocked off the trail really quick. A little discouragement, we run, you know. But if you give a little encouragement, we'll be back to ask you again if that happens. And how does a gentleman respond if he's told no to a request for a date? You simply say, thank you for your kind consideration. Thank you for considering it. And that's it. You know, you just walk away from that. Now, we'll spend, I think we can do this in 15 minutes, on manners and etiquette. So I'm going to be going down through this sheet, and you guys, we can get some of these up here to you. Men will say, I want to look like I know what to do. I don't want to be embarrassed. I think all men want to look like we know what to do in these settings, in formal settings, informal settings, the right thing to do, but we've never been told in some of these. Men want to feel confident that they are sure how to act in any given situation, because when the man is hesitant and unsure, they look lost, and they know they look lost. So, some little pointers. Chewing gum, my suggestion, only when you're alone. You know, I've gone to weddings, and everyone in the wedding party was chewing gum. You do not chew in a wedding party. And if you just ratchet that back, you know, chewing gum, this isn't good for the gum industry, but it's not, let's keep going. Spitting, you only spit in private. In communication, remember, speed kills. Slow down your speech. In introductions, when you introduce someone, now this is proper etiquette. Mr. Older Person, I would like to introduce Mr. Younger Person to you. Introduce people. That's what a gentleman does. You introduce people to people when they don't know each other. Mr. Older Person, I would like to introduce Mr. Younger Person. If you forget someone's name, you simply say, I'm so embarrassed I can't remember your name. I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. General manners when dating. Hold the young lady's coat. Elevator, get the door for her. Doors, open the door. And the chairs for women. Now listen, you're going to see me blow this. I am not the model for this, okay? I am telling you what we all need to work at. I need to work at this probably more than any of you. So this is a reminder to me as well. Be careful to make introductions. Walking beside a woman rather than ahead of her. Gentlemen, if you're married, don't ever walk ahead of your wife. Walk alongside of her. Please say please and thank you a lot. Show kindness and humility. Refuse to fight or argue in public. Private is good too, but especially in public. And refuse to use foul language. You know, there's nothing that makes a woman look cheaper than when she opens her mouth and profanity comes out. Oh, it looks so cheap. And there's nothing that looks a man look less manly than when he opens his mouth and profanity comes out. You want to appear to be a gentleman? Don't go there. Opening a door, you always open the door for the woman. If the door is very heavy and it can't be held from behind, any guys ever experience this? You go to push the door, you have her in front and you push the door and you can't push it because it's too heavy. It happens. Come on, I'm not the only weakling in here. Come on, admit it. If that happens, then you go to the door, open the door, and then let her walk in on that side. Otherwise, you should push the door and hold it for her. Always help her with her coat, off and on. When entering a restaurant, this is what I talked about this morning, when entering a restaurant, of course, you open the door for her. But when you go into the restaurant, you then walk up to the maitre d', to the table, make reservations. When you go to your table, listen, the man walks first. And the reason is because the man, when he gets there, is going to help her with her chair. And if she walks there, if she walks there first, she gets to her chair before you do. You get there so you can pull her chair back and help her with that. Sue and I talked about this, and she said it makes you feel safer too, right? It's just more comfortable for me to go first. So out at a restaurant at the table, the bottom of the first page, when a woman next to you gets up to go to the bathroom, do you stand? If you're a gentleman, you're sitting next to a woman, she stands up. At a formal dinner, the answer is you should. Surveys show that women want and expect you to stand at least when you're out in the town, when you're at a formal dinner. 40% of women say that men never hold a chair for them. It's something to think about. The back of the page. When first being seated at the table, the gentleman always offers to hold a chair for the woman seated to the right. If there's a woman now, this one I've never done. I think this would get a punch in the face. But it says, if there's a woman seated on your left as well, and no one offers to help her with her chair, you may do the same. Her husband might not like that, so I'm not sure about that one. So fingers versus forks with shared plates of food. You're at a dinner and there's food in different plates. You always use a fork to take the food off, never fingers. A closed menu is your signal that you're ready to order. If you want separate checks, let your server know that at the start. Once you pick up a utensil, listen, once you pick up a fork, a knife, a spoon, that utensil should never touch a tablecloth again. It stays on your plate. On resting utensils, I think this is wrong. Continentals, let's do American style. American style is where you cut with your right hand and then you eat with your fork on your right hand, right? You lay your knife down and then pick up your fork and eat, right? That's American style. Continental style is where you hold your knife in your left hand and your fork in your right hand. No, the other way. You hold your knife in your right hand and your fork in your left and eat with both utensils all the time. So these are reversed. Let's forget that one. That's a fine point. Do your best.
Don't chew with your mouth open.
Yes, don't chew with your mouth open. Sneezing at the table, if you have time, get up and excuse yourself. That's something not too many people do, but we should excuse ourselves. Blowing your nose at the table, if there's no tablecloth to use to blow your nose, I'm just kidding. Blowing your nose at the table, excuse yourself from the table. And concerning the napkin, you should place the napkin on your lap as soon as you sit down. Don't tuck it into your shirt or belt or shake it out to unfold it. You just simply lay it on your lap. When you're done with the napkin, you don't fold it. You simply bunch it up and put it on the left side of your place setting. On bread plates, all butter, bread, jam, finger food all go on your bread plate. So people have little food things that they're passing around, hors d'oeuvres, that kind of thing, they all go on the bread plate. Sharing food, a bite or two, pass your bread plate to that person. Your wife has some extra food left over on her plate. You give her your bread plate, and she puts it on the bread plate. If you're cutting a loaf of bread at the table, cut off 3 to 4 pieces, making sure to use a clean napkin as you hold the loaf when cutting it. That's especially important if you didn't listen to the point about blowing your nose. Let's keep going. If you don't know the people seated on either side of you, introduce yourself. Look, again, be a gentleman. If you don't know the people seated on either side of you at a dinner, introduce yourself. Don't look at your phone or take a call when at the table. That's really impolite. If you don't want wine poured into a wine glass, which I don't, you don't turn the cup upside down. You may have been told that, but you don't. You just say no thank you to the waiter. Commonly asked questions about table manners. The next page, how should I hold my knife and fork? Let's skip that one. Let's go on. Can you put your elbows on the table? The rule of thumb is that whenever your utensils are not in your hand, it's okay to put your elbows on the table and lean forward slightly. It shows that you're engaged in conversation. So that's only if you have... what's the correct direction to pass food at the table? You always pass to the right. That's because we live in a right-handed world. But what if someone seated to your left around a large table asks you to pass something to them? Then you pass it to the left. Knives and forks are always placed in the order that they are to be used at a formal dinner. Smaller forks for salad are always on the outside. You always start from the outside and work in with utensils. At fancy dinners, the soup spoon will always be at the top of the plate. Your glassware is always set up on the right side. Eat left, drink right. Eat left, drink right. So when someone says, which is my cup? It's eat left, drink right. Your cup should always be to the right of your plate. So if there's confusion between you and the person next to you, it's on the right of your plate. When someone asks for salt and pepper, always pass them both. Don't just pass one, always both. And don't salt or pepper your food until you've tasted it. That's kind of an insult to the kitchen. Is it okay to sop up the sauce with bread? That's okay. Use a small piece of bread, but use your fork to push the bread around the leftover sauce. I've seen people use their nose. That's inappropriate. I'm kidding. Okay. When you cut your meat, cut it one bite at a time. If you excuse yourself from the table, gently fold your napkin and lay it on the left side of your place setting. Do the same at the conclusion of your meal, so you don't put it on your seat. A lot of people throw it in their chair and leave. You don't do that. Every time you leave the table, you should simply say, excuse me, please. If you drop a utensil, don't retrieve it. Tell the server who will bring a replacement. At the end of each course and at the end of the meal, place your knife and fork. Again, this is technical, but we don't know. If you know, you can choose to do it the right way. At the end of each course and at the end of the meal, place your knife and fork on your plate side by side in the 4 o'clock position, 4 times down. 4 o'clock. Like, not a big deal, but now you know. And that's it. There are more than you ever wanted to know about etiquette. It sure isn't a Christian mandate, but as I often said, men really do want to be gentlemen. We really do want to be the knight in shining armor. We do want to do the right thing at dinners we get invited to. And the reason I go through this is, for a lot of you men, you hear this one time, you'll remember. You will remember this. And it just allows you to feel more like you're doing the gentlemanly thing when you take out your wife or you take out a date. Dan, I think we're out of time.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at the table eating dinner and you grew up with 4 other siblings and you fought for food all the time and she wants to taste a little bit, just have a little empathy and share. Because I was like, no, this is mine. Don't you even dare. And like, she'll hold it. She'll remember for the rest of your marriage until you meet God, and she'll probably still remind me of that.
Yeah, it's the same thing with my wife. Sue grew up in a big family. She would give up anything. She doesn't care about, there's nothing material she cares about. She doesn't, I'm telling you. She doesn't. But don't touch her food, or you have a battle ahead of you.
Just before I close real quick, one thing, it's a generalization, but it has merit. Women civilize men. And you get in a relationship and you burp at the table and the little kids are laughing. I've heard this before, never did it. But and then my wife would get upset, and after a while, it affected my behavior for the positive. And that's all.
You want to close this out?
Yeah,
Dan?
thank you, Lord. It's been a fun evening. Bless everybody here. The single folks here, pray that they just take to heart, Lord, how much that you have a desire for each one of us as we get married to have a godly, Holy Spirit-filled relationship. Help us, Lord, as men to live lives that honor women. And the same for women, honoring the lives of men. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks for coming out tonight. God bless you all.